model, Luke Rockhold. Luke, how are you, dude?
You can just introduce me as other than the latter of the half. I'm doing well. I'm ready to fight.
Ready to fight already? The fight's not for a little bit still. You're ready to go now?
I've been ready to fight since June.
Yeah. Since it has been a little bit of a. Are you talking about this June or last June? You were ready to fight as soon as you walked out of the cage with Michael Bisping. I feel like last June.
Yeah, that was definitely ready then. But I've been trying to fight since June. I've just been getting delayed and not getting any fights. No one wants to step up and fight, and I can't take any more delays. And this is time.
Well, it's finally going to happen. UFC Fight Night, September 16th against David Branch in Pittsburgh. As I understand, you are in Pittsburgh right now to do a little bit of a media tour. Tickets are going on sale. What are those like for you? Are those a nuisance? Are those okay? What are the questions like? I mean, because you're not dealing with super specific MMA media, right? You're just talking about Pittsburgh general media. What are the questions like, and what's the day like when you do those things?
You hit some of the general media and you hit some other outlets. It is what it is. It's not my first rodeo. I've been in the game 10 years. Fighting, almost every event has been a main event, pretty much in the last 8 years. So I'm well prepared.
Yeah. I got to say, when this fight came together, it was announced. What was it? 2 weeks ago now, maybe a week, 10 days, whatever the case was. When it was announced, it came together. I was a little bit surprised, because you and I have talked this year, and one thing that you made very clear is that I've reached a point in my career where I'm not just taking fights to take fights. I want to know where I'm going. I want to get up for a fight. I want it to be exciting. I want it to be against somebody that it means something. And then it comes back, and it's David Branch, which is nothing against David Branch, but he doesn't seem to fit that description that you gave me earlier this year. So can you talk about how this fight came together and why, at the end of the day, you're facing David Branch on September 16th?
Like I said, I can't wait any longer. I've been trying to fight since June. They offered me the Anderson Silva fight on short notice for myself. I accepted it. It seemed as though we were going to make the fight happen. I was going to go to Brazil and fight the man on his home turf. On short notice, he wouldn't accept the fight. They offered him more money. He still wouldn't accept the fight. They tried to push that fight back and make it happen in July. He didn't still want to do it. Then they tried to get Gegard Mousasi on the July 8th card. They couldn't sign him in time. They said, just wait. Try to get that fight in July 29th. They still couldn't sign him, and I waited, and he left. He went to Bellator. So that option was off the list. Then we ran into seeing what was left in the division. Fights that would be fun for me. I tried to get Verdum to fight. He wouldn't take the fight.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get fights. And at a certain point, I couldn't take it anymore, and then obviously August was off the menu. There's no fights in August, and now we have September. I'm not going to waste my whole career. I tried waiting for the right fight. September is the most logical main event spot. I'm a 5-round fighter. That's what I fight, and that's the true tales of a fighter. I tried to get the fight. They wanted Yoel Romero. I said, yeah, let's do Yoel Romero. Let's do it September 16th. His camp tried to delay, say they needed 3 more weeks for a 3-round fight specifically. And, like I said, after all these delays, I'm just fed up with it. I'm ready to fight. He wouldn't fight me in a 5-round fight. And so the only guy left, Derek Brunson wouldn't fight. The only guy left is a Branch. It is what it is. I can't wait forever. Talking in April when I was talking to you, I wanted to get that fight.
Yeah.
Come May, June, July, and we're still sitting here without a fight. Bisping's still running from the top guys up top. I'm ready to track that fool down. I'm ready to get back to where I belong, and so be it. This is it. whatever. Doesn't matter who the opponent is anymore. I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to go perform.
And it's interesting to hear you say that, Luke, because, I mean, you've had back and forth with Yoel on Twitter, and a lot of this is public. And I'm wondering, like, how close, you kind of alluded to it there, but how close was that fight to actually happening? Like, did you sign a bout agreement and he didn't? Like, was this fight really close at one point?
No, I wouldn't say it was too close. We were stuck on two different playing fields. He wants to fight in a 3-round fight. I wanted to fight in a 5-round fight. That's what it is. And, everyone knows Yoel has problems, going the 5 rounds, and I don't. And I'm not going to force a fight with a guy. I'm not going to try to leave it up to the judges. I'm going to be technical. I'm going to be solid, and I'm going to fight a real man's fight. There's a reason why championship fights are 5 rounds. They separate the men from the boys, and that's what I believe in fighting. So anybody I want to fight at the top is going to be 5 rounds.
Where do you think, Luke, if you go out and absolutely demolish David Branch on September 16th, where does that place you? And this division is still, it's still kind of floating around. I mean, it got a little bit better because now we have an interim champion, but and that brought some clarity to it. But let's say you go out, best case scenario, and you wreck the guy in the first round, then where does that leave you, do you think?
It just solidifies who I am and what I've done. I think I've already proven myself, and I'm a better option than anybody at this point. I was in the beginning. I've beaten Bisping, I've beaten Jacare, I've beaten Weidman. I beat a guy that like Tim Kennedy who beat Bisping. I've beaten everybody, and I don't know what else I need to do. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to let my performance speak for itself. I'm going to beat this guy like nobody else has.
Do you see yourself after you get a win on September 16th? What would interest you? Would you want to revisit the Yoel Romero fight, or is that ship sailed? The Jacare Souza, obviously that rematch was set at one point. Would you want to look at that? Chris Weidman got a win. Is there anybody? And I know your focus, of course, is on David Branch, but if you were not to get a title shot after this fight, what name would interest you? Do you think?
We'll see. We'll see when it comes. I don't. Obviously, I'm going back to the top. And that's what I want. I don't know. So, we'll see. We'll see where the chips fall. At the moment, who knows what's going to be what. Bisping's fought nobody in the top 10 in the last year and a half, and he still isn't going to fight anybody in the top 10. So, where does that put him? I think they should pull the title from the guys like that who don't fight anybody in the top contenders. They pulled the title from what's her name? Because she wouldn't fight the number 1 contender, quote unquote.
Durandamy.
So why isn't he different with this situation? This guy is running scared from the whole division, calling himself the champion when he hasn't fought anybody since he got the title and got lucky.
I want to ask about the animosity between you and Michael Bisping. I mean, we've seen the way that both of you conduct yourselves after both of your respective stoppages. You've been very respectful in the cage. Michael Bisping has been a little bit less than respectful after his stoppage victory. Is there still some real animosity there, or has it all been to try and sell tickets for the fight?
There's some bad blood, and if he ever sacks up and fight anybody in the division, I'm sure I'll find him. I'll fix the situation. There's when I beat him, there's a sign of a guy that knows what he's going to do. When he beats me, there's a sign of a lucky little.
And obviously, all this begs the question of we're back to sort of where we started here with Michael Bisping taking on Georges St. Pierre. It looks like that fight is going to happen later this year. I mean, I got to be, your opinion on that fight is well known. I think you've talked about it a lot. But now that it's come back and it's looking like it's going to happen again, give us your thoughts on that fight happening later this year. And do you think there would ever even be a situation in which Michael Bisping would agree to fight you? Because it just doesn't seem like he has too many fights left beyond facing George.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not one to comment on it. We'll see if George even makes it to the fight. The guy's been out for so long. Who knows where his head or his body's at, and if he will actually make it to that date. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to do what I have to do, and we'll see where everything's at that moment in time.
Luke, I'd love to get your comments on just the fact that this fight is even being spoken about and could very well happen. The fact that Georges St-Pierre has been out of mixed martial arts for several years. He was one, if not the greatest, one of the greatest welterweights of all time. But the conversation is he's going to come back at middleweight and immediately face the champion in this super fight era of the UFC. How does that land on you as somebody who's been taking on all comers or trying to take on all comers in the middleweight division?
I think it's a joke, plain and simple. I think the UFC is hurting the sport when they make fights like that.
And Luke, last time you spoke about the matchmaking of the UFC, Dana White came back and said you should stick to male modeling. How is your relationship with Dana White these days?
No, me and Dana are fine. We've gotten past our differences, and we are completely fine on that note.
Well, that's good to hear. How about let's talk about UFC 214 last weekend. I saw you there. I didn't get a chance to speak to you. Obviously, you were there to support your guy, DC. Your thoughts on? Obviously, it was a disappointing result for Cormier. What did you think of the fight and just the week itself?
I got in late. It seemed like he was in a good headspace. Obviously, he performed well, too. I mean, he went out there and he fought a great fight. For the first 2 rounds, I had him up 2-0. I think most people did have him up 2-0. He dominated that second round, but Jon's tricky. He's got he's a creative fighter, and he's not going to quit. He's going to go 5 rounds unless you put him away. So, Cormier got caught with probably the only thing that could potentially finish him, which was a head kick. So it's just he baited him and feinted him into it, and so be it, man. It's Jon Jones is a great fighter. DC is too, and he got caught.
There was this clip out that was of, I think it was about 3 years ago, where they were sitting on the stage and they were talking about DC's tendencies, and DC actually mentioned, "You're not going to kick me with your left leg." Is that something that he has, and I would imagine if he's working on that you would be a good sparring partner to prepare him for that. Is that something that he's always kind of known, that he has a tendency to dip into a left leg head kick?
It happens. It was a sneaky head kick. I worked with him on kicks the last week before the fight, and it happened.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't have a tendency. I've launched many head kicks at DC. I've done fairly well to block them.
You know what? I'm going to stop being an analyst and a reporter and a journalist here. I'm just going to be a fan. I'm just going to be a true fan right now. Luke, will you move up and fight Jon Jones at light heavyweight? I think that would be so spectacular. Wow. Now you got the storyline of DC, coming up short against him. You challenged Jon earlier this year to a grappling match. That didn't end up happening. Could we ever see Luke Rockhold versus Jon Jones? Because I, as a fan, would kind of geek out for that. I'm not going to lie.
As of right now, I have unfinished business in this weight class. I'm going to go pursue what I've lost, first of all. If that option isn't there and they continue to do what they're doing with the division, I won't stick around. I will move up, and I will be hunting down the next title.
Well, who knows what they're doing with that division? Jon Jones is talking about fighting Brock Lesnar. Is Brock Lesnar a worthy title challenger?
The current stage of MMA is at a bit of a crisis.
Luke, do you feel any pressure to, like, as a fighter who it seems like you slant towards, the Bushido spirit versus the business end of it, in the sense that, give me the fights that make the most sense. But with all of these super fights being booked, the McGregors and Mayweathers, and then Brock Lesnar fighting Jon Jones, GSP getting an immediate title shot upon his return, like, do you as a fighter feel any pressure to have to talk that much in order to get paid accordingly and get those big fights?
Spice it up, huh? Well, yeah, I just try to do what I do and be who I am. This is the UFC was built on a formula where the best fight the best, and they've gotten to this stage because they relied on that. They got the fastest growing company, everything, like the fights will build themselves. The super fights build themselves. And when they try to force the fights, they're going to put a strain on every division and then the whole sport. You're going to hit weak points. You need to focus on building the stars and focusing on the talent and keeping the fights that make sense. That's what people really want to see. I mean, those super fights are only going to do so much for the sport.
Luke, I got one more thing I want to ask you about, and that is Cain. There's been some rumors around that, and I don't even. I mean, they're not rumors. Everyone knows that he's trying to come back. He wants to come back from that back surgery of late last year, and then he could take on Stipe Miocic right away. What can you tell us about Cain? How much he's been in the gym, and could we be seeing him in a heavyweight title fight anytime soon?
Cain's has his problems. I believe the sciatic nerve has been bothering him for some time, and if anybody has had or understands that issue, it's pretty severe, and I know it was pretty bothersome. I think it's backed off a bit, but I think he's hitting that tipping point where he's gonna push through and try to hit something, try to sign something here shortly, and I don't see anybody else that deserves that fight more than Cain Velasquez, and so I think that's very likely you could see Cain back in the cage.